The rich will keep getting richer, the poor will keep getting poorer, and the middle class will be wiped out. You understand this saying fundamentally, you understand it from a superficial standpoint. What does this actually mean at an intimate level? The economy is designed to keep you poor. It's so structured to benefit a very few people. And once you understand how the game is played, you play it to your advantage. First things first, they ensure that you only have one source of income and endless way to spend it. Look at it at a very intimate level. Sit down and analyze your life. You have only one source of income, but endless ways to spend it. And this is very purposeful. When you're in a situation where you can print endless amounts of this money and people will do anything for a fraction of your wealth, you are in effect their master. You dictate the terms, you dictate how people operate in order to get a tiny slip of your amount. All of this started in 1971 when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. It means the country could print as much currency as they want. In the prehistoric days, I know this sounds funny. That's why I'm referring back to the prehistoric days. Because right now you've been desensitized to the idea of money being printed. It's normal to you. In 1971, when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, usually in the prehistoric days, a nation cannot print more than it has in its gold reserve. So the currency had some kind of inherent value since it was tied to gold. Nowadays, it's just a legal tender. It's just something the government tells you is a medium of exchange. We see this in the 2023 election in Nigeria, where the government ordered that X note has been annulled. Everybody rush to the bank and change your note. So it's just a legal tender. It's impossible for a president to come along and say, every single person who has gold, change it to silver. It's no longer accepted. It's impossible. Every single person would bounce. But because this has no inherent medium or inherent value, it's worthless. Again, you've been smeared as an individual with the indoctrination that wealth equates consumption. In other words, wealthy people are wealthy to the degree they consume. So you got the idea, this indoctrination that has come subliminally. That's another word for unconscious. You have adopted the programming of the princes and you subscribe to that belief. If you've been following me long enough, you understand by now, beliefs, once sustained, manifest in your reality. They don't need to be vocalized. Once sustained, you begin to act in accordance with that belief system. Another point I want to quickly highlight is the fact subliminal programming, which is another word for unconscious programming, engenders belief. So once you subscribe to those belief systems, you begin to act in accordance to produce the desired outcome. They purported this idea through various means, either through music videos, the kind of movies or content you consume. that wealth is consumption. So you bought this idea that you need to buy in order to portray yourself wealthy. And there are two ways which we look at it from. The first being wealth or wealthy people are very diplomatic in their approach. They only spend a very small percentage of their wealth. However, because they built this pie over time through diplomacy and patience, a small subset of their percentage accounts for a lot. I'll give you an example. Take two people. Person A earns $25,000 annually before taxes. For simplicity of math, 70% goes to investment. He keeps 20% cash, 10% for expenses. So 70% goes to investment, 20% cash for to fund some investment opportunity. Now his 70% investment account comes down to something around 15 grand or so. So 15 grand. Conversely, the other guy on the right, brother B, earns 250 grand annually. He invests 80% of his wealth. He keeps 5% cash, spends 5% on expenses, and the remaining 10% is perhaps for charity. What's 5% of 250 grand? That's somewhere between 7,500 to 8,000. When you see him getting that extra guac or see him living a certain lifestyle, let's include the 10% that was meant for charity. So 15% of his wealth goes into expenses, somewhere around 30 grand or so. So when you see him getting that new watch, financing the new house, getting a new car, brother A is pissed off. This man is very extravagant. I wish I had the kind of wealth. I wish I had the kind of money he spends. I would have channeled it into some investment outlet that would yield dividends. Why the fuck would he walk into a KFC and get the extra guac? He's wasting money, he's wasting money, he's wasting money. But if you look at it from a very logical standpoint, brother B is outperforming brother A in every metric possible because he has a bigger pie to play with. His investment is a lot more, his savings are a lot more, and his spending is a lot less relative to the amount he earns. Do you now get the point? I will continue this video regardless of the electricity. I apologize. However, brother B, brother B outperforms brother A by every metric conceivable. Yes, brother A is angry because he has a bigger pie to play. Why did I highlight this point? Is for you to understand how the wealthy think. They think long term. So when you see them consuming 100, it's most likely they are 2,000, 3,000. That's how wealthy people minds work. We've refuted that fact of extravagance. Point B, or number 2 point, point 2 rather. What's the first point? The percentage point. Second, the second is you've accepted an unconscious programming. An unconscious programming to spend every single thing you have. I've refuted it from with the first point that the wealthy people are not extravagant. That's why I deliberately put this as number two. So wealthy people are not extravagant at all. They just have a bigger pie to play with. When you go out there and buy Gucci and buy Louis Vuitton in order to feel rich, who are you really enriching? Imagine if you are so slave-minded that they've sold you the idea that another man's company is the dream, that Gucci is the dream, that as a kid you get up early in the morning only to go to bed late at night to believe that one day you're going to get a Lambo and it will make you feel fulfilled. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, then fine. The point I want every single one of you to grasp intimately is that you've been sold this idea deep down in the cravings of your mind that another man's company should be your dream, should be your desire. Also, this idea that wealth equates consumption is what I'm trying to refute. However, do you believe in this adage that if the wealth of the world were to be distributed equally, it would filter through the hands of few people within a matter of years? Of course I do. And there are thousands of analogies I can give to back that up. But we'll focus on one. Something that happened recently. Let's take COVID for instance. People seated at home handed out stimulus checks. So they were not working, yet they were earning a substantial amount of money. Most people took that finances, most people took that check, went to Gucci, went to Louis Vuitton, got a new bag, and they were happy. Who did they enrich in the process? Bernard Arnold. That's why he's one of the fucking richest man in the world. While others really needed that check. They went out to buy groceries from Walmart, from Kroger. You just enriched Walmart. Their stocks shot higher than ever because they made sales. Their stocks are now desirable because the company is more profitable than ever. If you decide to be smart about it and you and your maggot friend pull together your checks in order to get the property of the market, taking the property of the market inflates the price. Who has most rental property? Grant Cardone does, Kiyosaki does. They're just making the rich people richer. You invest in stocks, you invest in Amazon, Bezos gets richer. If the stock is in demand, as basic economics teaches, the higher the demand, the lesser the supply, which would invariably inflate the price. So you are getting in higher. Bezos is selling off, liquidating his assets, making more money. So whatever you do, the system is designed to make the rich people richer and the poor people poorer. Well, Ifeanyi, are you saying that it's impossible for me to become rich? Hold on, give me a minute. I just have to make sure the video was still recording. It's impossible for me to become wealthy. That's not what I'm saying. The point I'm trying to highlight astutely, the only way to traverse the board, the only way to fight this system is to subscribe to the mentality. If you can't beat them, join them. Become the rich person such that the system benefits you. One way to do that, there are two ways actually, but the first is to make a lot of money. Make a lot of money. I'll make it as superficial as possible because I want every single person to benefit from this teaching. Trying to double down on an outlet benefits one at the expense of the other. So one of the investments you can make is in yourself, knowing things, becoming more likable, starting a business, trying your very best to create cash flow from a business, from something you know, merging two things together. When I say merging two things together, like a talent and a skill, Steve Jobs' class in calligraphy proved pivotal at Apple because that decided the fonts we now use on our computer. And Microsoft copied Apple. So had he not taken that class, our fonts would have been fucked up. Trust that every single thing is connected to everything. I remember one time when I would try and devise philosophies, try and attack things from different perspectives. I would write those principles down, live by them. Little did I know one day I would be speaking to a very large audience, enlightening people, showing them new perspective as opposed to parroting every single thing I see on the internet. One of the reasons most of you gravitate towards my content is a secret I'm about to share. Is because it's fresh, new perspective, the same subject, not some distilled concept coupled with personal anecdotes but still communicating the same point. No, new perspective. So invest in yourself, become more likable. Likable doesn't mean conformity or humility. Likable is knowing things, becoming more interesting, an individual that a total stranger can have a conversation on the things he likes because you have knowledge on every single thing. The second is sustaining the consciousness that you can't enrich yourself without enriching others. Like the analogy I gave on property. Once you take the property off the market, it makes people richer. Eventually, as you begin to build that rental portfolio, another person getting into the rental property will profit you. That's why I call traversing the board. That's why I encourage you to make as much money as possible to leverage on investments. Capital is an equalizer. It's a way to multiply your effort. We live in an age of infinite leverage. You can leverage your actions by 1,000 folds through capital, through code, through media. Years ago, if I was to do something like this, it would be a seminar or a lecture. Even that isn't as effective as this because it can't be watched and people will have to fly in. There are so many inconveniences attached. This effort, this video, I won't have to record except a first principle. Yet, it will yield millions of times. You see what I mean by multiplying effort? That's the point. So, work in the consciousness that you cannot enrich other people. You cannot enrich yourself without enriching others. The people who try to err in the opposite direction of this belief and lonely walks in the prison of the United States, people who try to devise new rules for themselves. If you're in a transaction, if you're in a business, you sold something. Yes, you kept his dollars, but you enriched him in the process. You provided value in the process. That's why most of you want to network with high status individuals. You sustain the idea that you're compensated to the degree and proportion of the kind of problem you solve and who you solve it for. Who you solve it for comes into play when you're leveraging effort. Again, if you solve problem for 1 million poor people at $2 is a profit. If you solve problem for 2 million rich people, skyrocket. So the quality as well as quantity they matter. If you can leverage one or the other or the both, it's equally as probable. So the first principle is to make as much money as possible, invest in yourself, start businesses, and pay down the debt of ignorance. Someone will profit from you. Someone will enrich, or you have to enrich someone for someone to enrich you. The second, that's the second, I misplaced it. The first is make as much money as possible. The second, sustain the consciousness. To enrich yourself, you have to enrich others. And as always, my friend, a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.